My dear brothers and sisters, there comes a moment in life when you are no longer afraid of losing, no longer chasing success, and no longer asking for miracles. All you want is rest, not sleep, but rest from carrying so much inside your heart. You wake up, you function, you do what is expected of you, yet something within you feels drained. This is not laziness, this is not weakness. This is the weight of survival. And if you have reached a point where simply making it through the day feels like an achievement, then listen carefully. Because this message is not about how to survive anymore. It is about why you survived and what comes next. Surviving is proof you were never abandoned. My dear brothers and sisters, many people look at their lives today and feel disappointed, not because they failed completely, but because they are still surviving when they thought they would be thriving by now. They wake up, they do what is required of them, they fulfill their responsibilities, yet inside they carry a quiet heaviness. They see others moving forward and they begin to question themselves, wondering whether they have fallen behind, whether they missed something, or whether they are being punished. But surviving is not a punishment, and it is not a sign that you were forgotten. Think about the times when life became overwhelming, when the pressure increased, when the heart felt tired and the mind felt confused. Think about the moments when you felt you had reached your limit, yet somehow you were given the strength to continue. That strength did not come from nowhere. Sometimes support does not arrive in the form we expect. Sometimes it does not remove the problem immediately. Instead, it gives you endurance, patience, and resilience so that you can pass through what you are facing without being broken by it. My brothers and sisters, if you are still here today, it means that you were carried through something that could have destroyed you. There were nights you did not think you would make it through. There were days when you felt alone even among people, yet you remained. That remaining itself is a sign of care and protection. Surviving does not mean you are weak. It means you were given just enough strength at the right time. And understand this well. You were never abandoned. You were being guided through a chapter that was difficult but temporary. Feeling tired does not mean your faith is weak. One of the quiet struggles many believers carry is guilt for feeling tired. They say to themselves, others have it worse than me, so why do I feel like this? They remind themselves of blessings, they count what they have, yet the exhaustion remains. And slowly a dangerous thought begins to form. They start believing that feeling tired means something is wrong with their faith. But that is not true. Feeling tired does not mean your trust is gone. It means your heart has been carrying more than it was meant to carry alone. There is a difference between complaining about your Lord and crying to your Lord. There is a difference between losing faith and feeling overwhelmed by life. Even the strongest hearts feel heavy at times. Even the most patient people feel moments where they struggle to breathe emotionally. This tiredness is not disbelief, it is humanity. And your Lord knows the weight of the heart better than anyone else ever could. Listen to the words of the Quran, where Allah reminds us of this reality with great mercy and clarity. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. My brothers and sisters, this verse is not telling you that you will never feel tired. It is telling you that the tiredness you feel is within your capacity, even if you do not see it right now. Sometimes the heart feels like it cannot take another step, yet it does. Sometimes the mind feels like it cannot carry another thought, yet it survives. That verse is not a denial of pain. It is a reminder that you are stronger than you think, even on days you feel weakest. Understand this carefully. You are not failing because you feel exhausted. You are not distant because you feel drained. You are not ungrateful because your heart feels heavy. Faith is not the absence of pain. Faith is turning back again and again, even when the soul feels tired. And sometimes the greatest act of faith is simply continuing quietly, without applause, without recognition, without anyone knowing how hard it truly is for you. If today your only strength is to keep going without giving up, then that is enough. If your heart feels tired but still hopes even a little, then your faith is alive. Do not be harsh on yourself. The one who created you understands your weakness, your limits, and your silent struggles far better than you ever will. Survival mode was never meant to be your home. My dear brothers and sisters, survival mode is something the heart enters when life becomes overwhelming. It is a protective state. It helps you endure shock, loss, betrayal, disappointment, and moments you never imagined you would face. In that state, you do not dream much. You do not plan far ahead. You simply focus on making it through the day. And for a time that is necessary, it keeps you standing when everything feels unstable. But survival mode was never meant to be permanent. Many people remain in this state long after the danger has passed. The problem is not that they are weak. The problem is that they adapted so well to pain that they forgot what peace feels like. They learned how to be alert, cautious, guarded, and strong. But they slowly lost the ability to rest, to trust, and to hope. Life then becomes heavy, not because the hardship is still there, but because the heart is still bracing for it. Staying in survival mode for too long begins to drain the soul. It makes joy feel unfamiliar and calm feel uncomfortable. Even good moments feel temporary, as if something bad must follow. This is why some people say they are tired even when life seems stable again. The body may be safe, but the heart is still on guard. And when the heart never rests, exhaustion becomes a constant companion. Understand this gently. Moving out of survival mode does not happen overnight. It does not mean forgetting what you went through. It means slowly allowing yourself to breathe again. It means giving yourself permission to feel safe, even if only for a moment. It means learning that not every silence hides danger and not every pause is loss. Healing often begins when you realize that constant struggle is not the only way to exist. If you feel uncomfortable when things are calm, that does not mean something is wrong with you. It means you were strong for too long without rest. And that awareness itself is progress. Survival kept you alive, but it is not where your story ends. It was a chapter that taught you endurance, not a place you were meant to live forever. The tiredness you feel is often a sign that you are growing. There is a kind of tiredness that comes from doing nothing, and there is another kind of tiredness that comes from becoming something. Many people confuse the two. They assume that because they feel exhausted, something must be wrong with them, or that they are failing in some way. But very often, the tiredness you feel is not because life is defeating you. It is because life is shaping you. Growth is not comfortable. Growth stretches the heart in ways it has never been stretched before. When you are changing internally, even if nothing around you looks different, the soul feels it. Old habits begin to lose their hold. Old ways of thinking begin to crack. Old attachments slowly loosen, and this internal shifting is tiring because it requires awareness, patience, and restraint. Think about how much effort it takes to remain calm when you could react, to remain silent when you could argue, to forgive when you could hold a grudge, to walk away when you could retaliate. None of this is easy. It requires strength that people do not see. It requires discipline that no one applauds. And when this becomes a regular part of your life, the heart becomes tired, not because it is weak, but because it is working hard. Some people feel exhausted because they are learning how to let go, letting go of expectations, letting go of people who were never meant to stay, letting go of versions of themselves that no longer serve them. Holding on is easy, releasing is what drains the soul, because release requires acceptance, and acceptance requires humility, and humility requires the ego to step aside. There are also those who are tired because they are learning patience. Patience is not passive. Patience is active restraint. It is waking up every day with unanswered questions and choosing not to lose hope. It is waiting without knowing how long the wait will be. It is trusting without seeing the outcome. That kind of patience does not come without fatigue. It weighs on the heart quietly. Sometimes the tiredness comes from choosing peace repeatedly. You learn to walk away from conversations that once pulled you in. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided how they see you. You stop chasing closure from those who cannot give it. All of this protects your heart, but it also consumes energy, because peace requires boundaries, and boundaries require courage. There are moments when a person becomes tired because they are no longer the same person they used to be. The old version reacted quickly, spoke freely, trusted easily, and expected fairness. The new version pauses, thinks deeply, guards the heart, and accepts reality. That transition is heavy. You grieve who you were, even though you are becoming wiser. And grief, even when it leads to growth, is exhausting. Many people do not realize that growth often feels like loss before it feels like gain. You lose illusions, you lose certainty, you lose the comfort of familiarity, you lose the version of life you thought you would have. And in that space, before new understanding settles in, the heart feels tired and unsettled. That does not mean you made the wrong choices. It means you are in between who you were and who you are becoming. It is also important to understand that growth does not announce itself loudly. It happens quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. One day you realize you are responding differently. Another day you notice you are no longer triggered by the same things. Another day you find that your priorities have changed. These shifts are signs of progress, but they require energy, and the heart feels the cost before it feels the reward. Some people become tired because they are learning how to trust again, not blindly but wisely. Trusting after disappointment is not easy. Opening the heart after it has been wounded takes time and effort. Even allowing yourself to hope again can feel draining, because hope makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability always comes with fear. Yet without it, the heart remains closed. Understand this carefully. Feeling tired does not mean you are moving backward. It often means you are moving forward in ways that are not visible yet. Just like muscles ache after being used, the heart aches after being stretched. That ache is not damage, it is adjustment. There are also those who feel tired because they have been strong for too long. They were the ones others leaned on, the ones who did not complain, the ones who carried responsibility quietly. Strength over long periods becomes heavy when it is not balanced with rest. And sometimes life slows you down, not to punish you, but to force you to rest in ways you never allowed yourself to before. If you feel tired while trying to do better, while trying to heal, while trying to grow, then do not be harsh on yourself. You are not failing, you are transforming. And transformation always demands something from the soul before it gives anything back. Growth asks you to sit with discomfort, to reflect instead of distract, to face truths instead of avoid them. And this inner work is far more tiring than physical effort, but it is also far more meaningful. So if you are tired today, pause and ask yourself gently, what am I learning, not what am I losing? Because very often the tiredness you feel is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that something within you is becoming stronger, deeper, and more aware than it has ever been before. And growth, even when it feels heavy, is always moving you closer to a version of yourself that understands life with clarity, patience, and purpose. Loneliness often comes before elevation. There is a phase in life that many people do not understand until they go through it themselves. It is the phase where the noise reduces, the circle becomes smaller, and the heart feels alone, even when life continues as normal. This loneliness is not always because people left. Sometimes it is because you changed. Your priorities shifted. Your tolerance for confusion decreased. Your desire for depth increased. And suddenly, the same conversations no longer satisfy you, the same gatherings no longer comfort you, and the same connections no longer feel aligned. Loneliness at this stage does not mean you are unloved. It often means you are being repositioned. When growth happens internally, alignment externally takes time. And in that gap, solitude appears, not as punishment, but as preparation. Many people fear loneliness, so they rush to fill it. They stay connected to what drains them. They remain in spaces that no longer help them grow. They cling to people who do not understand who they are becoming. But loneliness has a purpose. It creates space for clarity, space for reflection, space for a deeper understanding of yourself and your relationship with life. When you are alone, you begin to hear your own thoughts clearly. You notice what hurts you, what motivates you, and what truly matters to you. In noise, you can avoid yourself. In solitude, you meet yourself. And that meeting is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. There are moments when loneliness teaches you independence, not the kind that rejects people, but the kind that no longer depends on constant validation. You stop needing approval to feel secure. You stop explaining yourself to feel accepted. You become comfortable standing quietly in your truth, even if others do not fully understand it yet. Some people feel lonely because they are learning to rely less on people and more on purpose. This shift is subtle but powerful. When your sense of worth no longer comes from how others treat you, but from who you are becoming, loneliness loses some of its sting. It becomes less of a wound and more of a teacher. Loneliness also reveals strength you did not know you had. When there is no one to reassure you, you learn to reassure yourself. When there is no one to motivate you, you learn discipline. When there is no one to lean on emotionally, you learn balance. This does not mean you stop valuing companionship. It means you no longer collapse without it. There is also a quiet refinement that happens in loneliness. You become more selective with your energy. You protect your time. You value peace over entertainment. And slowly, the chaos that once felt normal begins to feel unnecessary. This refinement prepares you for better connections later, connections based on understanding rather than convenience. Many elevated people pass through a season where they felt misunderstood, unseen, or disconnected, not because they were rejected, but because they were being shaped. Elevation requires clarity. Clarity requires silence. And silence often feels like loneliness before it feels like strength. If you are in a season where your phone is quieter, your circle is smaller, and your heart feels heavy at times, do not rush to label it as something negative. Ask instead what this season is teaching you. Often, it is teaching you how to stand firm without leaning too heavily on others. It is teaching you how to find peace within yourself before seeking it elsewhere. Loneliness does not mean you will remain alone forever. It means you are between what was and what will be. It is a bridge, not a destination. And those who learn from it walk into the next stage of life with wisdom, patience, and emotional strength. So if today feels quiet, empty, or isolating, do not assume you are losing something. Very often, you are being prepared for something greater, and preparation almost always feels uncomfortable before it feels rewarding. Relief often begins the moment you stop carrying everything alone. There comes a point in life when a person realizes that strength does not always mean holding everything together by themselves. For a long time, many people believe that being strong means not showing weakness, not asking for help, and not letting anyone see how heavy the heart has become. They convince themselves that silence is patience and isolation is resilience. But over time, this way of living begins to exhaust the soul. Carrying everything alone may make you feel independent, but it slowly makes the heart tired. Not because you are incapable, but because you were never meant to bear every burden without support. Even the strongest people feel relief when they are allowed to rest. Even the most patient hearts feel lighter when they are no longer pretending to be fine. Many people reach exhaustion not because life gave them too much, but because they never learned when to put things down. They carried guilt that was not theirs. They carried expectations that were unrealistic. They carried responsibility for other people's emotions, decisions, and mistakes. And slowly, this invisible weight piled up until simply existing felt heavy. There is a quiet misconception that relying on others means weakness, but there is wisdom in knowing your limits. There is maturity in admitting that you do not have the answers to everything. And there is strength in recognizing that you were not designed to be emotionally self-sufficient at all times. Even those who appear strong need moments of vulnerability. Relief often begins when you stop fighting reality and start accepting it. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means you stop exhausting yourself by wishing things were different every single day. You acknowledge what is without bitterness, and you allow yourself to breathe again. That breath creates space, and space creates clarity. Many people carry pain silently because they fear being misunderstood. They fear judgment. They fear being seen as weak. So they keep everything inside, believing that time alone will heal it. But time does not heal what is never addressed. Time only passes. Healing begins when honesty enters the heart. Sometimes relief comes when you finally say, I cannot do this alone anymore. That sentence is not a sign of defeat. It is the beginning of balance. It is the moment the heart stops pretending and starts healing. When you stop performing strength and start practicing sincerity, the weight begins to shift. There are also those who struggle because they believe they must understand everything before they can find peace. They replay conversations. They search for closure. They try to make sense of every loss and disappointment. But some answers do not come immediately, and chasing them relentlessly only drains the heart further. Peace often comes not from understanding everything, but from trusting enough to move forward without all the answers. Letting go is another doorway to relief. Letting go of resentment, letting go of regret, letting go of the need to control outcomes. Holding on to these things feels like protection, but it slowly poisons the heart. Forgiveness, acceptance, and surrender are not signs of weakness. They are forms of emotional wisdom. There are moments when a person becomes tired, not because life is still hard, but because they are still carrying pain from the past into the present. Old wounds are reopened by new situations. Old fears shape new decisions. And the heart never truly rests. Relief begins when you separate what is happening now from what happened before. The present deserves to be lived without the weight of yesterday pressing down on it. Trust also plays a role here. Trust does not mean ignoring caution. It means releasing the constant need to guard yourself against everything. Living in constant defense mode drains the nervous system. It keeps the heart tense. And tension over long periods becomes exhaustion. Learning when to relax, when to pause, and when to feel safe again is part of healing. Some people feel relief when they allow themselves to be supported emotionally, even in small ways. A conversation, a moment of honesty, a shared silence. Support does not always look like solutions. Sometimes it looks like being heard, sometimes it looks like being understood, and sometimes it looks like simply not being alone with your thoughts. There is also relief in adjusting expectations. Many people exhaust themselves trying to meet standards they never chose. They live according to timelines that do not fit them. They measure their worth by progress that does not reflect their journey. When you release expectations that suffocate you, the heart finds room to breathe. Another form of relief comes from realizing that rest is not laziness. Rest is restoration. The soul needs pauses just as much as the body does. Without rest, even meaningful effort becomes draining. Allowing yourself moments of stillness is not wasting time. It is preparing yourself to continue with clarity and intention. Relief is often subtle. It does not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives quietly in the form of a lighter heart, a calmer reaction, or a deeper breath. And many people miss it because they are waiting for life to change completely. But healing usually begins with small shifts inside before anything changes outside. When you stop carrying everything alone, you give yourself permission to be human, to feel, to rest, to trust again. And slowly, the heaviness begins to lift, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. If you feel exhausted today, ask yourself gently what you are carrying that was never meant to stay in your hands forever. Relief often begins not when life becomes easy, but when the heart learns how to release what it was never meant to hold on to for so long. And that release is not the end of strength, it is the beginning of peace. You were never created just to survive. There comes a moment in life when a person realizes that surviving, no matter how necessary it once was, can no longer be the goal. Surviving kept you alive. It protected you when things were uncertain. It helped you endure what you did not understand at the time. But survival was never meant to define your entire existence. It was meant to carry you through something, not trap you inside it. Many people reach a point where they say, I am still here, but I am not really living. They wake up, they go through routines, they fulfill responsibilities, yet something feels missing. That feeling is not ingratitude, it is awareness, it is the soul gently reminding you that you were created for more than constant endurance. You were created with the capacity to grow, to heal, to find meaning even after pain. Survival teaches you how to hold on, but life eventually teaches you how to let go. Let go of fear that no longer protects you. Let go of identities formed only through pain. Let go of the belief that hardship is the only state you know how to exist in. Many people remain in survival mode because it feels familiar even when it is exhausting. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. But peace, even when it feels strange at first, is where the heart finally rests. You were not created only to struggle quietly. You were not created only to prove strength through suffering. You were not created only to carry burdens endlessly. You were created with purpose, with potential, and with the ability to rise after being brought low. And rising does not always mean external success. Sometimes rising means internal clarity. It means understanding yourself better. It means responding with wisdom instead of reacting with pain. It means choosing meaning over bitterness. There are people who survive difficult chapters and allow those chapters to define them forever. And there are others who survive and then transform. They do not deny what they went through, but they do not live inside it either. They take the lessons, the strength, the awareness, and they move forward with humility. That movement forward is not rushed, it is gentle, it is intentional, and it is guided by understanding rather than fear. If you are tired of just surviving, it may be because you are ready for the next stage. A stage where you stop asking, how do I endure this? And begin asking, what is this shaping me into? That question changes everything. It shifts the focus from pain to purpose. And purpose gives the heart a reason to continue without feeling drained all the time. Living after survival does not mean life suddenly becomes easy. Challenges will still come. Difficult days will still exist. But the difference is how you meet them. You no longer meet them as someone who is barely holding on. You meet them as someone who understands their own strength, their limits, and their values. You meet them with perspective. There is a quiet confidence that develops when a person realizes they have already lived through what they once feared would destroy them. That confidence is not loud, it is steady. It does not seek validation. It does not rush to prove anything. It simply exists. And from that place, life begins to feel different. You begin to choose peace more intentionally. You choose growth even when it requires discomfort. You choose honesty with yourself. You choose to live consciously instead of just reacting. And slowly, survival fades into the background as wisdom takes its place. So if today you feel tired of merely making it through, take that feeling seriously. It may be the invitation your heart has been waiting for. An invitation to stop measuring life by how much you endure and start measuring it by how deeply you understand, how gently you heal, and how meaningfully you live. Survival kept you alive, but what comes after survival gives life its depth. And when you reach that understanding, you realize something profound. You were never meant to stay in survival mode forever. You were meant to rise from it, carrying lessons, strength, and clarity into a life shaped by purpose. Take a moment wherever you are right now and just breathe. You do not need to rush into the next task. You do not need to have everything figured out today. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pause and recognize how far you have come. You are still here, and that alone carries meaning. Remember this gently. The chapters that drained you were not meant to define you. They were meant to teach you. They shaped your patience, your awareness, and your strength in ways comfort never could. And even if you cannot see the full picture yet, trust that nothing you endured was wasted. If today feels heavy, let it be heavy without judgment. Do not fight yourself for feeling tired. Do not criticize your heart for needing rest. Healing is not loud. Growth is not rushed. And transformation does not happen on a schedule. It unfolds when the heart is ready. Carry hope quietly. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that stays. The kind that reminds you that even after the longest nights, light always returns. Even after the hardest seasons, change comes. And even when you feel alone, you are never without purpose. As you move forward from this moment, do so gently. Choose peace when you can. Choose patience when things feel unclear. Choose kindness toward yourself, especially on the days when you feel least deserving of it, because surviving was never your end. It was the bridge that brought you here. May your heart find rest. May your mind find clarity. and may your life move from endurance to meaning, one calm step at a time. Ya Allah, we come to you with hearts that are tired, yet still holding on. You know what we carry inside, even when we struggle to put it into words. You know the weight of the days we survived silently, the nights we endured with patience, and the moments when we felt weak but continued anyway. Ya Allah, grant rest to hearts that have been surviving for too long. Replace exhaustion with peace, heaviness with ease, and confusion with clarity. Heal the wounds that were formed through loss, disappointment, and loneliness. Mend what was broken quietly, and strengthen what became weak through long endurance. Ya Allah, help us release what we were never meant to carry alone. Remove fear from our hearts, lift the burden of regret, and calm the constant worries that drain our souls. Teach us how to trust you fully, how to let go without anxiety, and how to move forward without dragging the pain of the past into every new step. Ya Allah, for those who feel stuck in survival mode, open doors toward meaning and growth. For those who feel alone, remind them that they are never unseen. For those who feel lost, guide them gently back to purpose. And for those who are tired of trying, renew their strength in ways only you can. Ya Allah, grant us patience without bitterness, strength without hardness, and hope without restlessness. Help us accept what cannot be changed and give us wisdom to act where change is possible. Allow us to find calm even when life feels uncertain. Ya Allah, make what comes after this moment lighter than what came before it. Replace survival with understanding, struggle with balance, and endurance with a life filled with meaning. And allow us one day to look back and realize that this difficult chapter was the turning point that brought us closer to peace. Ameen.